Welcome to the Weekly Leadership Experience, a place for leaders to get inspired, be challenged, and grow. I am your host, Reshad Oberlander. Let's get started. Today's episode of the Weekly Leadership Experience is brought to you by my 7-day Leadership Growth Challenge. It's a free challenge that I've created, and it's delivered by email over the course of 7 days. I've created 7 compelling questions to challenge various aspects of your leadership, the way you lead, and why you lead. Go to reshadoberlander.com and scroll down until you find the 7-day leadership challenge, or look for the link in the show notes. As with past weeks, I'm going to kick off this week's episode with a rating and review from one of my listeners. This one comes from Spruce and Sky for 5 stars. Inspiring and uplifting. The episodes leave you feeling inspired and uplifted. Even if you're not in a position of traditional leadership within a company, there's always areas of life that you can apply the information Reshad is conveying. Can't wait for the next episode. Thank you so much for sharing this review. I really appreciate it. Make sure that you head over to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review, and your review could be featured on a future episode of the Weekly Leadership Experience. And now, on with the show. Hello and welcome to this week's episode. I'm glad you've joined me. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to my podcast. A while ago, one of the coaches in my life, we were having a conversation and they told me that they just really wanted to see me be more confident. And it was really good feedback. I've definitely struggled at times in my life with being confident and being, forthright in saying what I want to say or do what I want to do because I was maybe unsure of the outcome or the circumstances. And so we had a really good conversation, my coach and I, on confidence, and they directed me to some good resources. And it was kind of like that time that you think to yourself you might buy yourself a red Mazda 3 as a new car because not that many people own one, and then literally all you can see on the road is red Mazda 3s and everyone seems to have one. It's kind of like when you focus on something, that's all your mind really picks up on. And so for a period of time, I saw all kinds of information on confidence and courage and building those things, and it was really helpful to me at the time, and I've done a lot of thinking about it over time, and recently had some really interesting conversations with a few people about kind of these subjects of courage and confidence and also competence, which are all very interrelated things. Courage, we think of someone who is courageous, who is willing to take risks and do things that are maybe dangerous and climb mountains and jump out of airplanes and things like that. And, with my daughter even, she's sometimes nervous or fearful about trying new things. And I've been telling her, courage is exactly not being afraid. It's allowing yourself to be afraid, but being willing to try anyway. And taking that courageous step it is sometimes scary, and it is possible to invoke fear and still take that step and still try and still be courageous in that moment. And so when you look at confidence is more a place where you are exactly that. You know that the choices that you are going to make will lead to a certain outcome. You know that when you jump out of the plane and pull the chute, that the chute is going to open. I mean, there's, of course, big risk in something like that, but when you've done it enough times, you become confident in your ability and your equipment and things like that. And same goes for any other activity that has risks. If you do it enough times, you understand the risks, you understand how to mitigate the risks, and you understand that your actions are going to lead to a certain outcome. And not just talking about extreme sports, but talking about things as mundane as just daily decision making. You have to go to work and you have to make decisions and you have to decide on how you're going to get from your house to your work and how you're going to drive, and you know the route that you're going to take, and you drive it enough times and you know you're very confident in how you're going to get there and you can handle the traffic because you've been driving for a long time. When you first started driving, I guarantee you weren't as confident as you are now. And so what I find interesting about the relationship between courage and confidence is that it is kind of a reciprocal relationship. Courage feeds confidence, and confidence feeds courage because you are confident to make decisions that you have made a million times before, or you are confident to, hike the mountain or do the thing, right? You've done it enough times that you know how to do it. But confidence also gives you the ability to make riskier decisions or to make harder decisions or to stretch yourself further than what you've done before. So you use your confidence to feed your courage to step out into something that is a little further outside your comfort zone. And so you begin to stretch both your courage and your confidence by way of experiencing and doing life and doing those things that were once fearful, but now they're not because you've done it enough times, but then you are able to stretch yourself even further and grow yourself and grow your ability. And that is somewhere in the middle where competence lies. Competence is how well you can do a certain thing, whether it's a certain behavior or action or task or decision making process, whatever that might be. So, your competence in a certain skill. And that is that middle ground, I think, between courage and confidence. But it yet still feeds kind of both areas because competence gives you that ability to be courageous to take the next step. And courage and competence gives you the confidence in your own abilities and the ability to step out and keep growing. And something that I think that many people need to consider in their own lives and for leaders, whether it's yourself or someone in your team, and maybe you can help them, but we often forget what it is that we're good at, and we sometimes forget that we have confidence and competence and courage in certain areas because we don't see the relationship to the current situation or how it's going to translate. And let me give you an example. When I was starting this podcast, wanted to bring guests onto the show to interview them, to get other perspectives and opinions and share it with you, my listener. And I continue to design. I still want to interview and bring all kinds of guests on the show. But one of my concerns was how good of an interviewer am I going to be? And I think it's a skill that I'm still learning and developing, but I don't think that I'm certainly not bad at it. I think I'm fairly decent at carrying a conversation on with someone and having good questions with them. And in fact, I know that I am a good interviewer, because I have interviewed dozens and dozens and dozens of candidates for sales positions, for management positions, for service positions, and have carried on, hours and hours and hours and hours of conversation with people in an interviewing format. And the purpose of the interview is different, but the skill is much the same. You are asking questions to elicit a response that will inform the audience. And the audience was me, because I was trying to determine if this person was a good fit for the business and the team. But when I'm interviewing a person on the show, I'm wanting to ask them questions that will provide useful and interesting information for us as the listeners. And so there is a transferable skill set there that I was able to draw on to be able to conduct guest interviews on this podcast. And that is a fairly direct line of reasoning in that transferable skill. But for many of you, there are skills and experiences in your life that you've had that inform your ability as a leader, as a team member, as a person in society, where you have much to contribute to the people around you. And we often don't give ourselves enough credit for those things, and we kind of shovel that confidence and courage under the rug a little bit because we are maybe fearful of putting ourselves out there, or maybe we just forget that we have this amazing breadth and depth of experience and skill in our lives that we have to share. So what I think that you could do is sit down for a moment and just write down some of those things that you've accomplished and give yourself credit for the places that you've been and the things that you've experienced in life. And something a little fun that I wanted to share with you is a clip that I recorded while I was out hiking. And I was just struck by the kind of picture and analogy of hiking a mountain. I was hiking Mount Lawrence Grassy outside of Canmore, and I was just struck by the interesting analogy of the journey of struggling up a mountainside and looking back over the landscape and seeing where you've been. Here's the track.
Oh boy. If you're listening to this right now, my heavy breathing is me coming to you from the side of Mount Lawrence Grassy outside of Canmore. And I decided I'd go for a little hike. It's been a couple of years since I took on a real mountain, and I can feel my physical capacity is not as high as it used to be for hiking purposes. And it's interesting, this journey up the side of a mountain can be strenuous and difficult, and you're out of breath. It's maybe not the most enjoyable moment of the journey, but you stop and look back and look for the picture that I'll post with this. And you look back and you appreciate yourself for where you've come from. You take in the beautiful view for a moment, catch your breath. And looking back is good. Appreciate yourself for what you've accomplished and where you've been in life. See what you've done and where you've been. We don't always want to go back, but we want to see where it is. There might be certain places that we need to go for healing. We need to go back and visit that spot, or we need to go back and visit that good memory. But appreciate ourselves for what we've done and where we've been. And then we keep pressing on, keep pressing up the mountain, up the hill. It's always a journey. It's always a trek, getting better, increasing your capacity physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. And sometimes you get out of breath. Work on that, become fitter, become better, become stronger, and grow yourself as the leader that you need to be for yourself, for your family, for your team, for those around you. Whew. See you soon.
Well, there you go. You get to listen to my out of breath self for a couple of minutes there. But you know what I like about this shot and the audio that I captured while I was hiking is that, we're all on a journey, and sometimes it's hard and sometimes it's not as hard, but there's always a destination. There's always a point to which you are working towards, and sometimes you never reach that destination. Like, I think leadership is not, there's no ultimate destination as a leader. Like, you're always going to continue to grow as a leader. I would hope that you try to continue to grow as a leader. But this thought captures that you're not just born, you're not just full of a volume of courage or confidence just from the get-go. It's something that you develop over time. And it's something that you are on a journey of growing and developing in your life. Courage, to be courageous as a leader, to be confident as a leader. And a lot of it has to do with just trying, and despite being fearful and being concerned or unsure of the outcome, you just try and you build your competence in that skill or task. And the other thing that it has to do a lot with is recognizing yourself for what you have to bring to the table that you've already done and experienced in life. Like in my interviewing experience, is that you have done things that contribute to where you are right now and what you have to offer. So, recognizing yourself for those things, giving yourself credit, and knowing where you have ability and where you can be courageous and confident, and knowing where you have opportunities to continue to develop and grow in those certain areas. So, I encourage you to recognize yourself for what you've done, for where you're courageous and confident, and know where you have the opportunity to continue pressing on up the mountain and developing courageous, confidence, competent behavior. Get out there and make it happen. Until next time, stay awesome.
If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, would you head over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, leave me a rating, leave me a review, and share this with a friend. It spreads the word and helps the podcast grow. You can also find me on social media at R.E. Oberlander. Until next time, stay awesome.